A group of high school students started a project to research a string of unsolved murders.
There is no profile of this killer except for the ones the students created.
What if this guy's still alive? Like, what if he comes after us?
Once you start getting a few tips or a few leads or a few identifications, then the cold case isn't so cold anymore.
This is Murder 101. Listen to Murder 101 on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
It's Kate
and Oliver
Hudson,
host of the new podcast, Sibling Revelry. That's right.
We started this show because, you know what? No one talks about siblings and that dynamic.
The siblings, they know each other better than anybody.
Yes.
You know.
Listen to Sibling Revelry on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to podcasts.
Episode 86, Having Money Conversations with Kids with Bobbi Rebell.
Welcome to the Frugal Friends podcast, where you'll learn to save money, embrace simplicity, and live a richer life. Here are your hosts, Jen and Jill.
Welcome to the Frugal Friends podcast. My name is Jen.
This is Jill.
And I'm the one with the curly hair.
I'm the one with the straight, sometimes curled hair.
Well, mostly, look at my hair, girl. Look at my hair.
I have the super curly hair.
And now that you know which one of us is which, we want to talk about having money conversations with kids. To do that, we brought on our friend Bobbi Rebell. She is in the process of writing a book called Raising Financial Grown-Ups. She is the author of How to Be a Financial Grown-Up. And so we are so excited to have her on today and pick her brain.
But first, a word from our sponsors.
For sure, of course.
Also brought to you by mansplaining, the real art of explaining not so complicated concepts to very competent individuals. Here to tell you that, oh, sweetheart, this is not a real sponsor. It's a fake one. Like when you play Monopoly, it's not real money. It's fake. Do you get it? Mansplaining, the worst and most degrading way of providing information, and definitely not the way you want to explain finances to your kids.
For sure. And I'd like to point out that women can mansplain too.
Oh my gosh, yeah. I realized that as I did it, I'm like, I'm so good at this.
Yeah. I know a few of those ladies.
Oh, yeah.
Well,
it's almost more cutting when it happens from a female because it's we hide it more and it's like
we're
more
on the same team. Why?
Oh gosh. Unfortunately, no, we're not.
No. Well, to kick off our December, it's December 13th, so it's not really kicking it off. But we are so excited to have our guest for this month, Bobbi Rebell. She is the author of How to Be a Financial Grown-Up. She hosts the Financial Grown-Up podcast. And without further ado, let's get into our interview with her. Bobbi Rebell is an award-winning TV anchor and former personal finance columnist at Reuters. She is a certified financial planner, author of How to Be a Financial Grown-Up, and the host of the Financial Grown-Up podcast. Thanks so much for coming on the show, Bobbi.
Thank you so much for having me. And you forgot my other second job, which is I'm also the co-host of Money with Friends with Joe Saul-Sehy from Stacking Benjamins. That's my latest venture. So it's probably not even in the bio yet because the show is only a few months old, but I love doing Money with Friends with Joe.
I know. And I actually knew that and forgot to put it in the bio, but you were also nominated with us for Best New Personal Finance Podcast. And
we both lost.
None of us won.
Lost. Yeah.
We all lost. What's up with that?
So we lost together. We
lost together.
Yeah.
So we both have friends in our names, which is also key, right? Yes. So
and that's how you know they're good shows because you're just talking about money and frugality with friends.
That's probably what it was that they already knew we had enough people to be friends with. So they wanted to give the awards to people who didn't have friends.
So well said. I think you nailed it.
Thank you. Good word, Jill. So, Bobbi, I wanted you to come on the show because I saw that you're working on a follow-up to your book, How to Be a Financial Grown-Up. And it's how to raise financial grown-ups. And so we really wanted to pick your brain on teaching kids about money because personally, my son won't listen to a word I say about compound interest.
And how old is your son? To be clear, let's
he's
be honest
4
here.
months.
Okay.
And I feel like at this point, he should be listening more productive. He should be more productive with his days.
Yeah.
But
he really needs to get a job.
You know what?
Yeah.
You have a late bloomer. It's okay.
Thank you. I just have to come to terms with that.
You have to come to terms with it, but you have to let your child grow into who they are. And you know what? He will catch up. And even late bloomers can have successful and productive lives. So hang in there.
Yes.
Good word.
Thank you. So I'm going to just reference back to this episode in about like a month or two when I feel like he's more ready.
Yes.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yes. Maybe we'll have my 12-year-old do a coaching session with him.
Perfect. We'll schedule that. Perfect.
If the 12-year-old's still speaking to me after all my money lessons.
Yes. So tell our listeners about you and your kids and all that.
So I have 3 kids. I have a 12-year-old that we just referenced. He's a boy. He's in 6th grade, and he gets the everyday money lessons from me all the time, which we'll talk about later. I also have 2 older stepchildren, and they are 22 and 20. One just graduated from college and has a totally awesome job. So proud of her. She's earning a great salary, and she's saving up to buy her first home. And then our 20-year-old, my stepson, is a sophomore in college, and he is no longer studying finance. He has decided to go into film. So we're having some money discussions with him about that life decision. We'll see how that goes. And that's the 3. And then I have a husband who's wonderful. He works in consulting, and we have a dog who does not provide income, but we're trying to get her a modeling contract because she's super cute, but she's right now on the payroll only. She's not bringing in income for us.
Yes.
Yeah.
But you can check her out on my Instagram, Waffles.
Oh,
she's beautiful.
Yeah. That's amazing.
I love that name.
We're so excited to hear about all the money lessons, all of them that you're teaching your 12-year-old.
Yeah, we're going to be here for a while.
Yeah. There's a lot I can learn, I'm sure.
Yes. If he was here, he'd be doing major eye rolls
yes.
while also multitasking, playing on his phone, of course.
Yes. So we started talking before we even pressed record about just the generational impact of this conversation. And while we're talking about raising kids to be financially savvy, of course, we can't gloss over the impact of parents and siblings. For you, Bobbi, what's been the impact of your parents and siblings on your spending habits as an adult?
It's really interesting, guys, because you see what your parents were doing so differently when you yourself become an adult. And especially, and Jen can, of course, relate, when you have children and you're having money discussions with children starting at, 4 months old. So I did not have a lot of money discussions with my mother directly. I had a lot with my father, who worked on Wall Street, and he would sit us down, my siblings and I, and he would ask us specifically what we needed money for and what our budget was. And then he would give us the money for that budget. And we also always had jobs, I should say. Starting from age 15, I had a job at a bakery. I had a job at a department store. So we also always worked for our own money. But my mom, it was more observing. And this is where it gets interesting. She's no longer with us. But at the time, I would observe her making these decisions that were extremely frugal, despite the fact that, from what I can tell, we were relatively comfortable. As I said, my father worked on Wall Street. So, for example, I remember whenever we went on a plane, we were bringing homemade meals, always. We went to the local, I don't know what you call it. It wasn't a pool. It was more of like a homemade lake, kind of, which as a kid is like huge. It was like a massive beach around this beautiful lake with all of these food stands and all this activity.
You go back and it's like, it was a muddy puddle.
Exactly. Totally. It's like a puddle, right? But we would go there. It was called Darlington Park. I remember in New Jersey. Oh my goodness. I can't believe that came to me. And we would always bring our own food, and we never were allowed to buy the food like the cool kids. And I didn't really think, I wasn't happy about it at the time, but looking back, I realized this was her way of being frugal, that we wouldn't go and just buy the store-bought food. We were always bringing our own. She would slice up salami slices on white bread. always white bread. And we would have, it's interesting because in that era, and this is the 70s and 80s, I don't know why we didn't just drink water, but for some reason we were always drinking like juices. Like she would literally on purpose put color, dye, and sugar into our water to make it into juice. She would mix the juice at home.
Oh
it would
my
be like
gosh.
the packets that you would dump in, and it was like sugar and dye. And like, I don't know why did we do that? We had water that was perfectly good, but she would do that. And then we would have our fruit drinks that she'd pour into the little cups that she would bring. And so, I grew up not knowing what was going, she wasn't having discussions with me, but it was more observing. So we would do these things. And I remember even when my father started doing, clearly, they never told us, but we moved to a better house. He started driving a really fancy car. And so we moved into this house and my mom would be decorating. And I remember one day she was putting up towels over the windows. And I said, Mommy, why are you doing that? And I was about 13. And she explained that, we spent so much on the house that we're just not going to buy curtains for a while. So these were just observations. There was never an on-purpose discussion with her. So it's just interesting how those things stick with you. And even in my own home, we've done things in stages. So even today, we're talking about, we still have a dining room table that predates my marriage, which is 13 years. And we're talking about, it's really time. We need to do that. And I'm like, let's wait.
Right.
Let's wait.
Right.
There's nothing wrong. It's perfectly good.
Yeah.
It's a little scratched up, but you can put a tablecloth over it, guys, right?
Right.
Of course.
And it's interesting. It seems like what you're describing is a lot of what we talk about on our show, just defining frugality, because I think there's so many different versions of it, or people use that word in so many different ways. But frugality isn't necessarily just a reflection of how much money you have. Certainly some people are choosing frugality, not choosing, it's being chosen for them because they don't have a lot of money, but it can also be a lifestyle that regardless of what amount of money you're living off of, you choose, like the bologna sandwiches on the airplane and the towels for curtains. Do you feel as though those types of things you've adopted, and do you like that about yourself, or is that something that you'd rather change?
I think there's a balance. I think there's nothing wrong with being aware of what things cost and making deliberate choices. I also think that we are all very much a product of our parents. So now I look at my parents and I think about, well, what was their background, right? So my mother, she's acting in irrationally frugal ways. She had a husband that was certainly able to provide enough that we could have curtains. And by the way, my father listened to me talk about that story on a podcast and corrected me. He said, we absolutely had money. She just had issues spending it, but we had the money to buy curtains.
Right.
So, but she had lost her father at a very young age. And it was at a time where her mother, my grandmother, who as a woman did not go to college in that era, which was common. Some women obviously went to college, but many, many did not have that opportunity. And my grandmother talked about being upset that she did not have the opportunity that her brother had. So my grandmother was widowed young and had no real ability to earn money. And so they had a real financial crisis. And I think that my mother's sometimes irrational frugality came from that era of not having the money, of being worried about what's going on, versus my dad had grown up. His father had been born in this country, but his grandparents had been immigrants, and they had moved up a traditional economic path of success in that they had their own family business and it grew. And my grandfather went to college, and my father not only went to college, he went to private high school and then went on to Ivy League schools for college. So my father came from a very privileged background. And so that may have contributed to his feeling a lot more secure spending money. And so it's interesting to look at what informs our perceptions of frugality.
Yeah. I like that term, irrational frugality.
Same.
Yeah.
Not always going to be helpful for us.
Yeah, definitely.
But we all do that. We all do things like that.
Yeah.
I think that I brought the same irrational frugality when I was like in college, like still nickel and diming, making all these small purchases, but not believing that I could spend money on larger purchases and save money and pay off debt. Like believing I was too broke to do that. But I had enough money to like buy all the lattes and the dollar things in the Target like dollar section. Yeah. And I definitely had to learn. And like some people call it a scarcity mindset too. But I like the term irrational frugality. But back to teaching kids about money. Let's start with young kids. What do you think are the most important things that parents can do to teach young kids about money?
Make it part of your everyday life. And you will get some of the eye rolls, which I certainly get. But for example, whenever we take a taxi, which I hate to do, but there are times when I have to because I have to get from point A to point B in a certain amount of time. And that's the only way it's going to happen. I will have my 12-year-old take my phone and he puts in the code to pay. We pay through an app, and he can see how much is going to the tip, how much is going to tax. And so he understands right now we've had some new taxes in New York City. So when that happened, he understood that the price just to get into the taxi had gone up because there's certain automatic taxes, flat fee taxes that go onto every taxi bill. And so that's a big lesson about taxes and why things sometimes cost what they cost, even though the driver may not be getting that money. And we've had discussions about how a lot of the drivers don't even own their own taxis, that they basically rent them. And so that goes into your net profits because you don't always keep all the revenue, which is what people pay. So he understands now what people pay to the taxi driver is not necessarily what they're earning for the day. So everyday life is the best way, whatever that may be.
Yes.
Hopefully you guys are not paying for overpriced taxis in New York City, but whatever you're doing, even you go to the gas pump, that's a great way. Have them help you pump the gas, have them see if there's a different price for cash and credit, have them see what the tax is on that and understand how that all works. Explain when you go through a toll booth in the car, where does that money go? In theory, it's going to maintain the roads. Not always, but you can tell them it is, right? Keep simple. So everything in life is a lesson.
How do you balance that eye roll, right? Of teaching them, but yet not making them despise this thing? Where's that line for you?
Yeah.
So the eye roll is new because he's 12.
Yes.
So I will maybe put it out to your audience. Maybe people could write in and tell me some tips because I'm certainly struggling with that a little bit myself. Part of the eye roll is because he's kind of over it because he knows what I do for a living. So he's used to it. So I don't know. I think just be cool about it and just know that's more of a teenager thing. He's a tween, technically, I guess, at age 12. But it's also, you have to know when to shut it down a little bit. We had a little injured toe. He fractured his toe last week. And I did ask him if he understood that we were in an in-network provider and what that meant. And he actually did explain to me what that was. And I said, do you understand the deductible and how great it is that we're past the deductible right now? And he did explain what that was. And he said, okay, Mom, can we stop now?
My toe really hurts.
Exactly.
Yeah, my toe
but he was
hurts.
on it. I was kind of really impressed with him that he did understand what I was talking about with that. So that was pretty cool of him.
What about when he was younger? How soon did you start with these lessons and how did you make them age appropriate?
You start when they ask. Something will come up. So for example, you might be picking out a birthday present for a friend of theirs and there should be a budget because otherwise, what if they just gravitate towards this $100 toy, which by the way is not our budget for birthday toys. So Jen, you don't need to spend $100. So, let's say you want to spend $20 to go to let's say he's 4 and you're 4 years old, not 4 months. And he now has some say in what you're going to be getting for his friend for the birthday party. You can give them a budget and show them how the price. Hopefully you're at a store where they display prices, or you can maybe go up to the person working at the store. I love to patronize. We have some small toy stores in my neighborhood, and you go in with them and you say, what do you have? Or have your child say, ideally, we're buying a present for my friend. They like this, this, and this, they're into Star Wars or whatever it is. And our budget is between $20 and $25. Can you show me some options? And that way they can sort of get a very granular understanding of how to spend money and how it works.
Yeah.
And it's fun because they're picking out a present.
We know New Year's resolutions often don't stick. In fact, on average, they last around 30 days. So if saving money is on your 2024 resolution list, here's a foolproof way to stick to yours.
Switch your phone provider to Mint Mobile. For a limited time, wireless plans from Mint Mobile are $15 a month when you purchase a 3-month plan. That's unlimited talk, text, and data for $15 a month.
For those of you paying close to $40 a month for just one phone line, this means a savings of $300 over the course of the year. We especially like Mint because all plans come with unlimited talk and text and high-speed data delivered on the nation's largest 5G network.
To get this new customer offer and your new 3-month unlimited wireless plan for just $15 a month, go to mintmobile.com/frugal. That's mintmobile.com/frugal. Cut your wireless bill to $15 a month at mintmobile.com/frugal. Additional taxes, fees, and restrictions apply. See Mint Mobile for details.
AI might be the most important new computer technology ever. It's storming every industry, and literally billions of dollars are being invested. So, buckle up. The problem is that AI needs a lot of speed and processing power. So, how do you compete without costs spiraling out of control? It's time to upgrade to the next generation of the cloud, Oracle Cloud Infrastructure, or OCI. OCI is a single platform for your infrastructure, database, application development, and AI needs. OCI has 4 to 8 times the bandwidth of other clouds, offers one consistent price instead of variable regional pricing. And of course, nobody does data better than Oracle. So now you can train your AI models at twice the speed and less than half the cost of other clouds. If you want to do more and spend less, like Uber, 8x8, and Databricks Mosaic, take a free test drive of OCI at oracle.com/strategic. That's oracle.com/strategic. oracle.com/strategic.
Or, yeah.
Yeah.
Did you have your kids interact with money at all, even at a young age, as in like a version of an allowance, or here's how we set percentages aside, or how did you approach that?
We did not have allowances for the older kids. For my 12-year-old, he wants an allowance. And so we're starting to do that at $10 a week. But he hasn't gotten it all the time because of things that he's done in terms of media, because he now has a phone. So that's been erratic. What we did do is we talked to them about money, and they had jobs. And I really like the idea of kids earning income themselves, not just being paid to be part of the family.
Yeah.
I'm still unsure how I feel about allowance. I see both sides, and I'm conflicted. I think it's nice to have kids have spending money. And I definitely understand parents that just say, well, I want my kid to focus on their activities and on their schoolwork, and there's no need for them to have a job. And I think that's great. But both of my older stepkids have had jobs. And I will tell you that my stepdaughter, who is saving to buy her own apartment, and we're really proud of her, she has a nice base. She's not quite there yet, but a lot of it is money she earned over the years. And my stepson also very cognizant of money that he's earning. And I think there's something really tangible and wonderful about earning money themselves. But then people say, and again, I'm conflicted about this. People say, well, then pay your kids to do household chores. I don't like to do that. I think that if you're part of the family, you clean up after yourself. And if someone else leaves something out and they left and they forgot it, pick it up. It's okay. We're all a family. So I don't love the idea. I don't want to say to my child, take out the garbage, and have him say, pay me $5.
Yeah.
You take out the garbage. That's just my feeling.
Yeah.
But I totally respect that other people have different things that work for their family. So I'm just figuring it out. And a lot of my next book, Raising Financial Grownups, is about me figuring it out with the older kids, because I'm going through a lot of questions where I am conflicted and I'm a little bit unsure of what I'm doing in terms of getting them to be truly financial grownups, as I say, to have their own financial independence. Because as a parent, you do want to help them financially. I personally cannot just write a check to buy my stepdaughter an apartment, but part of me feels like, well, if I had a mountain of free cash, I would want to, because I just want her to have her own apartment and be happy and free. And isn't that great? And we have to resist that temptation, because kids won't learn financial independence if we just buy everything for them. That said, if they want to earn money, I think that you can help them set up a business if that's something that they're interested in doing. So instead of whatever it is, a chore around the house, maybe you're not going to pay them to rake leaves off your lawn, but you can help them make a business where they rake the leaves for your neighbors.
Yes,
in other
I
words,
love that idea.
So that they learn business skills. We have not done that. I think that's a great idea, though. So I'm learning from you guys. But because they're not paying me to pick them up from their sports practice, right?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah,
right?
no, yeah, I totally get.
I don't know. It would be kind of one way. And I guess I'm dealing with older kids now, but I make them dinner. I pick them up at all these activities. We provide shelter and food and all this stuff, and we don't expect to be paid. So if I ask someone to take out the garbage, I want them to just say, sure, no problem, and get up and do it.
Yeah.
Right?
I support that. I like that. But yeah, trying to help them set up maybe a business where they do these simple household tasks for other people so they can separate it from like their home. I love that idea.
Exactly. Yeah, I think we've gotten away from doing the paper route and those kind of things in this generation. Maybe it exists. Maybe it's just because I'm in New York City and people don't buy that many physical papers anymore. But the idea of having jobs when you're young is a really great thing. Another thing I think is that we've moved away from because we have so much digital is actually understanding counting actual money. My son had saved a lot of coins because he did the 3 jars that Ron Lieber advocates and the opposite of spoiled. And we went to put them in the bank, and the bank explained that if we were going to deposit them, that we had to put them in the little sleeves. And if you take them to a machine, I looked up the machine, it's like 11% they take. So I gave my son the choice, by the way. He did not want to give up 11%. So score 1 for young Harry. And we sat there at the bank and we were wrapping all these coins. It was $47 worth of coins, a little more than 47. I don't remember the exact number. There's an Instagram story on it somewhere. And he said to me, he says, Mom, this is kind of nice. I feel like this is kind of a soothing activity. We're just sitting here, literally counting pennies and spending time together. And there was something really tangible about actual physical money that I think younger children can really get a lot out of understanding and then bringing it to the bank teller and depositing it in his account.
Absolutely.
I made him speak to her. I just stood a foot behind and nodded, and he made the transaction himself.
I love that.
And that's the thing. Most of us are tangible learners, tactile, visual. It's not enough to just do the auditory spoken lessons, but to actually interact with money and to know what that's all about. That's priceless.
Yeah. But it's a struggle. It's let me just tell you one thing I do struggle with, and it'll be interesting if you get any listener feedback on this. Right now, kids can buy things that are virtual; they don't exist. So, a game in some of the games that my son plays, they can buy things, and he does get a trickle of allowance when he's doing the right thing. And he wants to sometimes use that to buy these virtual things. And I'm really struggling with it because you want to say, okay, let him learn to me, it's a mistake. I don't know. I feel like this is a bunch of whatever, a bunch of hooey, let's say. I don't know if it's a G-rated show here, but I don't want him buying that. I just think that's the dumbest thing ever. And he's like, but Mom, everyone else is at this level and I can't get to the level because they're all buying this stuff. And I'm like, oh boy, this is really keeping up with the Joneses. This is, and you're literally throwing away your money, but yet, shouldn't I let him learn his money lessons himself, right? So what do you do with this world of virtual stuff? Because you talk about tactile things. What do you do when a kid wants to buy something that's not even a thing?
Yeah. And I think that's why we're talking about young children and that it does start young. So if they had interacted with real money at an age appropriate level at 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, by the time they get to interacting online with virtual things, there's a greater understanding and value for it. Than just like, I don't know, this is just a number on the screen, click the okay button.
Yeah. And you mentioned the 3-jar system, which is, I believe, like save, spend, and give. Correct me if I'm wrong. Yeah.
Yes.
And so if you're teaching kids to save before they spend, I think and then they get to spend on whatever they want, even if it's imaginary, but you empower them to spend. I think they'll make mistakes. They'll make a bunch of mistakes at first, but then eventually they'll get tired of not having anything to show for their spend jar and see all the great things that they have gotten after they've saved. And I think that in itself, that will like course correct as long as you're teaching all the parts of money to give, save, and spend.
I hope you're right. I don't know right now. Right now, I'm not so sure. He's pretty into the virtual stuff.
Yeah.
We'll see.
So speaking of older kids, teens, and even young adults, what can be done by parents? What are some top tips to help them understand these important money lessons as they are about to leave the nest and how to be able to even act on those lessons, actually put it into practice?
This is a really hot topic right now, and that is what I'm writing my book on because if we're being completely honest here, I am struggling with this myself. It's very hard. I love that you said as they get ready to leave the nest, you're making a big assumption that they're going to leave the nest.
Yeah.
Right. As you prepare to push them out of the nest.
And they prepare to hold on with everything in them.
Exactly. But you guys, okay, so you're talking to, I am a Gen Xer, and so we are the generation of helicopter parents, and we are now morphing into, they call them bulldozer parents, snowplow parents, and so on.
What?
So it's really unrealistic. Oh, yeah.
What does that mean?
Yes.
What is a snowplow
that means
parent?
Like that they're just mowing over they're just hovering to a degree that they are going to, and I did not do this. They're going to the job interview. So for example, this is so bad.
Goodness.
So this didn't happen. So this almost happened in my house. So my one of the children, I want to make this somewhat anonymous, had a little hiccup at their work. And I literally said to my husband, can't you go in and just fix it? I know. And he looked at me, he's like, no, because I was like, oh, but it's almost like, but I want them to get an A. So can you just fix the test? And I had to catch myself. That's so bad, right?
Oh my gosh.
So bad. Right. So we're having troubles. I mean, even we were cleaning out, we redid the boys' room, and even cleaning out, my son had done relatively well at chess in that there would be 100 kids and he sometimes won 8th or 9th place. Okay. But out of 100, it's not that bad. They give you whatever, they give you a trophy, and I could not throw away the trophies and my son was like, yeah, whatever, get rid of it. I don't care. And I'm like, oh, but remember the time, and we're so proud of their 8th grade trophy, 8th place trophy. And that has to end. So anyway, a lot of the issue is really the parents when it comes to older kids, I believe, just owning it a little bit myself. But you go through these things where you say you want them to be independent, but then, well, why would you, if you're already paying for a Netflix subscription, why would you make your adult child pay for another one? That's just dumb, right?
Mm-hmm. So
why would you? And then the phone bill is another tricky thing, because now we have, my stepdaughter she chose to rent a phone from Apple. So she always has the latest, greatest one. And then we also have her portion of our family bill, her line, and some other stuff, and the taxes and the insurance that goes with that. So I want her to be putting all of her money into saving for a new apartment, right? To buy an apartment. And she's making progress. She is living at home. She's banking all her money. She's doing all the things, guys. I see the little bit she spends. It's such a trickle. She's really doing everything she should be doing, right? But yet on principle, I feel like she should be paying her phone bill, right? She's got an awesome job. She's 22. Mm-hmm. She has no overhead, but it seems petty. So I'm sort of torn. And, we recently talked about it, and she's like, okay, I'll pay this portion of it. And she's doing all the things. But then I'm kind of like, oh, but do I really want to take $40 a month from her when she's doing all the things, right? So I don't really know. And that's kind of what the book is going to be about, is how do you figure out where the right balance is, especially when the kids are kind of doing what you taught them to do. Right?
Yeah.
But we don't want to let go. We're providing subsidies that may or may not be as needed as we think they are. But I don't know. What do you think? Should you pay your 22-year-old's phone bill if you can and you want her to save money? Or should you say, well, you're 22, pay your own phone bill?
It's so interesting.
Know.
I had my mom paid for my phone and most of my bills until I got married at 25. It was so crazy. And I didn't think about it. It never crossed my mind. We never talked about it. And I lived at home for 2 years after college. So I was used to being on my own and paying most of my bills. So I was used to paying rent and utilities and stuff like that. But for my health insurance, which was cheaper to be on her health insurance, and then a phone bill, those things she always paid. It never even crossed my mind that I should be paying for them, because we never had that conversation. But now looking back, I'm like, yeah, I should have been paying that. I would definitely make my kid pay their portion of their phone bill. But it did help me because I was getting my master's degree. I had a very small income because I was only working part-time and paying for rent and stuff. So it did help. It took a lot of burden off of me to not have those few little expenses. Right. So I'm, as a product of it, I'm also torn, because I still have okay money habits, even after having the privilege of having that stuff paid for me for so long.
It's interesting. You never had a conversation about it.
No. But later I did, after I was already, paying for all my own stuff. And what she said was that because she felt guilty for not being able to provide college for me, because I had to take out student loans for my master's, she felt the least she could do was pay for my insurance and phone bill. So that made some sense to me. But it wasn't until later that we had that conversation.
And health insurance is also tricky, because you can say, okay, the total cost of paying for a young adult's health insurance, you want to pick whichever one is better overall. So if getting them completely separate would cost whatever, a certain number, and you could save half the money if they were in the parents' plan, you don't want to create an extra expense ever for a child. But then just because they're in your plan doesn't mean that they shouldn't pay their portion of it. So there's two things you're deciding. One, are they on your plan or their own independent plan? And then two, are they paying for their portion of your plan if they're on your plan? Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it goes for the phone as well. So to bump Ashley off the family plan would have been a lot more money than her simply paying a portion that is allocated to her of our plan. So you never, one thing I feel very strongly about is never create false expenses or unnecessary expenses to prove a point. Like,
for sure.
Don't triple your kids. You know, if you can have them on your plan for $30 or $40 and it's going to be over $100 for them to be completely independent, if you want to make a point and you want to have them pay the $30 or $40 of your plan. Don't create more expense as a family. I call it a family ecosystem. It's one of the concepts in the book that we should all support each other. I don't believe in just cutting people off, and it should be multi-generational. There may be times when your parents need your support, and you should be prepared to do that in a loving way as well. It's really a family ecosystem, and everyone should be there to support each other, and not in a dependent way, but in a supportive way.
Yeah. I think the most important part is having the conversation. So,
which you didn't have,
to determine like what's working for us. Are we going to do this while you're in college? Or are we going to wait until you're done with college? Just kind of talking with each other to determine the plan of action. There's no one right plan of action for everyone, but to figure it out together.
You know what else we can figure out together?
Yeah. And what else that I really love?
The best time of the week.
Yeah. It's the Bill of the Week.
That's right. It's time for the best minute of your entire week. Maybe a baby was born and his name is William. Maybe you paid off your mortgage. Maybe your car died and you're happy to not have to pay that bill anymore. Duck bills, Buffalo Bills, Bill Clinton. This is the Bill of the Week.
So, Bobbi, every week we have either a listener or our guest share their favorite bill for the week, and we wanted to invite you to share yours. You mentioned it a little bit before we started recording, and so I'm excited for you to share. Tell us about your bill.
So the bill of the week is my new computer that I am finally buying. Right now we are recording on my soon-to-be-retired 2013 MacBook Pro, and I will soon own a new MacBook Pro that is super fancy. I got the top of the line because I realized that I'm running my business on this computer, and my current computer is overheating. It cannot handle updates of software. There's all kinds of problems going on, and they're not going to be solved. And so I do have to bite the bullet and buy a computer. And it was really hard because I wanted to buy something that was much more, not necessarily the cheapest, but mid-tier. And I really made a decision to buy a top-of-the-line computer because I'm amortizing it in my head over 7 years, because this current computer lasted 7 years. And on a per year basis, the difference between getting something that's okay versus something that's great is really minimal. And I see where our businesses are going, and we really use these computers to run our whole business. And I think it's going to be a really good investment.
Nice. Yeah. And I love that you made the decision because you value your business. You are doing something that's going to make your life easier in your business. And I love that. It's choosing to do things that will make your life easier instead of pinching pennies and making it more inconvenient. And that is super frugal.
It's an investment. I'm not happy. I'm still cringing, as you can tell.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks so much for sharing your bill with us. If you all want to submit your bill of the week, visit frugalfriendspodcast.com/bill. Leave us a bill. It can be that great computer that's going to serve your purposes, or any other kind of bill. Really doesn't matter. We want to hear it.
Yeah, the guy named Bill that sold you the computer, whatever, if you really like him.
From the studio who brought you the #1 podcast, The Piketon Massacre, this is Murder 101.
A group of high school students started a project to research a string of unsolved murders.
Those murders happened in the mid-1980s.
He's out there doing stuff. He just didn't stop.
Everything that the students predicted through their profile turned out to be accurate.
Redhead killer profile. Male, Caucasian, 5'9" to 6'2", 180 to 270 pounds. Unstable home, absent father and a domineering mother. Right-handed, IQ above 100, most likely heterosexual.
There is no profile of this killer except for the ones the students created.
Just because some of these women no longer have people to speak for them does not mean that they deserve to not be spoken for.
What if this guy's still alive? Like, what if he comes after us?
I said, are you going to kill me? And he said, yes.
Listen to Murder 101 on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Discover the heartwarming and hilarious world of sibling connections on Sibling Revelry with Kate Hudson and Oliver Hudson.
You might be asking yourself, what is sibling revelry?
Yeah, well, we just made it up.
They'll have some laughs and maybe inspire some people along the way with universal tales of what it's like to grow up with brothers and sisters.
We're full-blood siblings, the only full-blood sibling.
In our family. Well, not in the world. I mean...
No, in the whole world. That's just it. Like, no one...
Dive into family tales and explore the human mind with guests like Joel and Benji Madden.
And it's fun because we've decided to open it up, to really like all kinds of different siblings. And it's going to be an awesome season.
It's more than a podcast. It's a celebration of the ties that bind us. Listen to Sibling Revelry with Kate Hudson and Oliver Hudson on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
And then it leads us to the lightning round.
Ooh. You guys are scaring me.
I know.
The lightning round is a scary segment. Yeah, that's reasonable for you to feel that way. I often feel nervous.
You're raising the bar.
We get to the end of the podcast and we start getting loud.
Yeah, Jill does. I still get scared. So our lightning round is super short. We really want to know 3 tips or however many tips you want to give for how we as age adults can be financial adults or financial grown-ups, as you call it. So what are your tips for all of the adults and parents and non-parents out there?
Okay, number 1, you have to actually look at numbers. It's so scary, but you have to open the mail or the virtual email or open your accounts and actually know what you owe, know what you have, know what your bills are, and just own it. And just run those, summaries where they'll lay everything out and you can see where your money's going. Because if you just have that information, it's kind of like when they started posting the calories on food. I don't know if you guys have that, but here in New York, when you go to restaurants, they will post the calories. And let me tell you, your eating habits change very fast when you see those numbers, right? Yeah.
Yep. Or my guilt level. Either one.
I mean, totally. Number 2, automate things because it's so much less stressful. Because also, as you get older, your memory is going to go. So this way, you don't have to remember to pay all your bills. You automate them, but with a caveat. You still have to go back to tip number 1, and look at what's going on. Because, for example, I recently caught the fact that I had unwittingly subscribed to some magazines that I didn't want, just because, even though I love them, they're a time suck and I never get to them and they just sit there piling up. So I didn't want the magazines. But you know what I didn't do? I didn't cancel the auto pay on the subscriptions. And it was a $3.67 charge, but it really upset me. And it was on auto and it was going to keep going forever. Like they were never going to let go. No. So I had to cancel it. So even though you automate, you need to still put it on your calendar. This is what I did now. I actually put it on my calendar every 3 months to go through everything because you need to check that you're not automatically paying for things that you don't actually want, but that you should automate the things that you do want to pay. So pay for things automatically. And pay also includes paying yourself things like your 401k or whatever else is going on, IRA, any savings, 529s if your parents, all that stuff. And then my 3rd tip is to forgive your mistakes because we all mess up. I do constantly, as you've heard. So just know you're going to mess up. And so be forgiving of yourself and just deal with it. It's okay.
Yeah.
Because we all mess up.
Yes,
like I just said, I'm paying for magazine subscriptions that I literally don't want. And by the way, on that phone call, guys, they didn't want to let me drop it. They're like, well, we'll let you have another year for free. And I'm like, I don't care.
I don't want 12 magazines stacked.
Exactly. They're stressing me out because they feel like a to-do list, right? Because you feel like someone worked hard on this magazine. I should read it. And So yeah. And and by the way, when that year ends, you know what's happening. $3.67 hitting your bill one more time.
Yeah.
So
I'm gonna be mad again.
That's a big mistake, right? All those subscriptions that you have, you got to get rid of them. Whatever you're not using, which is probably a lot of them. If you're using them, that's cool. But
Sure.
Yeah.
That's great. Thanks so much, Bobbi, for coming on the show. Where can people find more from you if this just was not enough? Which clearly it won't be.
Oh, you guys are so kind. Well, first of all, I have a website. It's my name, BobbiRebell.com. So that's the easiest thing. But please check out my podcast, Money with Friends. All podcasts with the word friends in them are awesome. So Money with Friends, just like Frugal Friends, right?
Yes.
And then, of course, Financial Grown Up. And you can check out my book as well, which is How to Be a Financial Grown Up, along the same theme. And thank you guys for having me. That's it. Oh, and follow me on the socials. Please. I'm really sad on Instagram. I'm really trying. I'm trying. But Bobbi Rebell 1. BOBBIREBEL and then the number 1.
Thank you, Bobbi, for coming on. I'll mention her book, Financial Grown Up, How to Be a Financial Grown Up, has like awesome interviews with like all these famous people. So definitely check it out. You will love it. And all those podcasts that you're on, check them out.
Too many podcasts, but please check them out.
Yes.
Great. Thanks, Bobbi.
Thank you, guys.
Awesome. That was a fun time. Bobbi is so great. And we were so happy to have her on. And we hope that you picked out something from that interview that you could take and use either in your life or in your family's life. If you are joining us for our book club this month, we are reading my new book, Pay Off Your Debt for Good. And I'm super excited about it. I mean, I'm totally biased, for sure.
We're all excited. And there's even more exciting news. If you want a free copy of Jen's book, leave us a review on iTunes, screenshot that review and email it to us at frugalfriendspodcast@gmail.com. And we will select one winner for every 5 reviews we get. So the likelihood of you getting a free book is pretty big.
And if you want to know a good example of a helpful review, here's our review of the week. It is from @Toad&Cake. Love that name. And it is 5 stars and it's the best. That's the title. I also feel that way about the review, though. This podcast is so good. It's the perfect combination of entertaining and informative. And I can't get enough of the fake sponsors. Well, I'm glad we didn't have to explain that to Toad and Cake. They always crack me up. I've been binging it all week and can't get enough. I'm so inspired by all the practical tips from the hosts and guests. Keep up the great work. So thank you. That was a very helpful review and helps people know what they can expect from the podcast. And that is the point of reviews.
Thanks, Toad and Cake. See you next week.
See ya.
Frugal Friends is produced, edited, and mixed by Eric Sirianni.
I'm sorry for the awkward introduction. I just felt it was time that we told people who was who on the icon because we had a thread in our Facebook group about everyone mixed us up.
It must be something psychological for people. When they look at our picture, they match my voice with your body and your voice with my body. It's like mythical creatures, really. Well, this whole swapping of voices and bodies.
One of the things I think is that, so you're the first one on the picture, but I'm always the first one speaking, like doing the title. So maybe that's why they just think the first person is the first one speaking?
I don't know. We could probably do a whole thesis and dissertation and research process on it.
Yeah.
Or we could just go with what you just said and assume that's the case.
I don't know. We would love to hear why you think who is who in our Facebook group.
Yeah.
People had some strong opinions. Yeah.
What if we're getting into territory? I don't know. As I'm thinking, I'm like,
where are we going?
What would be? Yeah, no, I am curious. Why would they think that?
I don't know. I can't wait to hear. Also, we put up a thread about a week and a half ago asking for not tips, but ideas for episodes for 2020. So we are writing our 2020 episodes list. So if you are listening and you have a topic that you'd really like to hear about, please head over to our Facebook community group, find that thread, and put your idea down. And if we've already done it, we will link to the episode. But you could hear your idea in an episode in a few months.
If you're still listening, because this is like the outro of outros. But
yeah.
Thank you.
if you're still listening, if you're that committed, you could hear your
You probably have some good ideas for a podcast.
All right.
Okay.
Signing off.
Sayonara.
A group of high school students started a project to research a string of unsolved murders.
There is no profile of this killer except for the ones the students created.
What if this guy's still alive? Like, what if he comes after us?
Once you start getting a few tips or a few leads or a few identifications, then the cold case isn't so cold anymore.
This is Murder 101. Listen to Murder 101 on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Discover the heartwarming and hilarious world of sibling connections on Sibling Revelry with Kate Hudson and Oliver Hudson. Dive into family tales, explore the human mind, and laugh with guests like Joel and Benji Madden. It's more than a podcast, it's a celebration of the ties that bind us.
And it's fun because we've decided to open it up to really like all kinds of different siblings. And it's going to be an awesome season.
Listen to Sibling Revelry with Kate Hudson and Oliver Hudson on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.